All right, let's get on to it today. This is the fourth part of this series, and today we are discussing how the kingdom comes on earth, and we are looking at the lives of Simon Kimbangu and Simao Toco, Simao Gonsalves Toco, and we're still on the first point of how the kingdom comes, which is it comes through an individual. It comes through you, it comes through me, it came through each of these individuals that you see on the screen. So today I think will be the last time we're talking about this point number one, about how it comes through you when we look at these two individuals. All right, so first of all, I want to talk about the word Kintoadi. Many of you are familiar with that word, but for the sake of those who are not familiar with it, I believe it's a Kikongo word. And if I'm not correct, somebody can correct me during the discussion. But I know for sure it's a Bantu word, and it means to unite, to be in consensus, to have something in common, or to be in one spirit. You can break down the word Kintoadi into 2 or 3 syllables. If you break it down into 2, the word ki, or the prefix ki, means the act of, and twadi means togetherness. So Kintwadi becomes the act of being together. Whereas if you break it into 3 syllables, ki into adi, ki is act of, and 2 represents the head or the leader. And this is, of course, the Nzambi. And adi or andi becomes his, means his. So it's the act of the leader, or his act, his being 2. So it's the act of Nzambi, or the habit of Nzambi. This I got from this book, and I'll be citing this book a lot today and giving examples from it. It's written by somebody called Dom Pedro V. I encourage anyone who has not gotten this book into their hands, get it. You will learn a lot. So that's Kintwadi, the idea of us being one or in together. I mean, being one in spirit, acting together in spirit, acting like Nzambi, or in the ways of Nzambi. That's what Kintwadi is. And I emphasize this point because we're talking about the kingdom coming through you or I as an individual, one person. So we need to strive to be one with Nzambi before we can even be one with one another. And these individuals that we talk about, you've seen it, you'll still see it today. They were first one with Nzambi, and then they were one with others. So there were B, this second meaning here, and then there were A, they were together in spirit with others. That is what Kintwadi refers to. All right, for today's topic, I also want to explain that if I use the term Congo, I'm referring to this territory covered by the 5 numbers here. So we have Angola in present day. We have the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was previously called Zaire or Zaire. We have what they call Congo-Brazzaville, Republic of Congo. And then we have some parts of Gabon and even Cameroon. That is what I would call the ancient kingdom of Congo, the Congo kingdom. So when we talk about Congo, in terms of the awakening, we are thinking of that whole region. Today, we'll talk about Simao Toco and Simon Kimbangu. First of all, it will be Simon Kimbangu, who came from this Congo Kinshasa, or the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. And then we'll talk about Simao Toco, who was from present-day Angola. All right. So what are we talking about? Simon Kimbangu Kiangani. Must say, when I started looking up Mr. Kimbangu, I came across so many words that mean exactly the same thing in Kikongo as they do in Kikamba, my dialect. And, it was just mind-blowing. So Simon Kimbangu was born on September 12th, 1887, and he passed away on October 12th, 1951. He was born in a small village named Ntimansi. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And that village is close to the village of Nkamba, which you see down there. And this is present-day DRC, or what people called formerly Belgian Congo. This is Kinshasa up here, which is the capital of DRC. It was previously called Leopoldville. Now it's called Kinshasa. So southwest of it is the town of Nkamba, and within or near that village of Nkamba is a village called Ntimansi. That is where he was born. Really, really late, like tiny dot on the map, on the globe. Something interesting about Simon Kimbangu, even before Simon Kimbangu's time, approximately about 105 years, I'm sorry, 100, not 105 years, but about 200 years or thereabout, around 1704, 1705, Kimbangu, who was also from Congo, the bigger Congo area, had prophesied about, or had predicted about the coming of Kimbangu. Here is what Kimbangu said, and I'm reading from this book. Kimbangu predicted the coming of Kimbangu. She called him the Bangundi, the revelator of occults and hidden pacts, teacher of sacred knowledge, and liberator of the Congo diaspora. She predicted that the chains of European oppression and domination will be broken by Kimbangu, the revelator. She announced that the process of restoration of the Congo kingdom will be initiated by Kimbangu. So about 200 years before Kimbangu comes on the scene, or almost 200 years, we see his predecessor, Kimbangu, who was burnt at the stake by the Europeans, for speaking truth to them. She prophesies about Kimbangu. And Kimbangu was no ordinary child. I can tell you that from what I have read. For example, when Kimbangu was just at the age of 5, just like my little boy over here, they had some visitors come to their compound, and one of the visitors requested some water, and the 5-year-old Kimbangu ran, brought some water, gave it very joyfully and respectfully to the visitor, until the visitors asked, there were actually like 2 visitors, they asked the father, how old is he? And, they say, he said, 5. And the visitors told him, he's a very, very respectful and, wonderful boy. And Kimbangu's dad was called Kuyela. So Kuyela called Kimbangu, the little boy, and congratulated him for making him proud. And this is why I said Kimbangu was not ordinary, even as a child, because when his father congratulated him, Kimbangu answered and said, "Thank you, Father. Before you were born, I was." That is from this book that I'm talking about. And if you want to look at it, you can find that later on page 134 of this book. So that was just one instance. Another instance of something that happened that you can say it was not ordinary for him is that on April 21st, 1910, he's about 23 at this time, there's a comet called Halley Comet, or Halley's Comet. It's a very famous comet, and it was seen in the Congolese sky, as it was seen, of course, in other places, but it was noted in the Congolese sky. Astronomers say this appearance of 1910 was the closest that that comet got to the Earth in terms of distance to the Earth. Now, this comet appears about every 76 years. I do remember seeing it when I was a little boy, around 1986. And I believe the next time it will show up will be 2062. But anyway, so why am I talking about this comet? Now, many researchers, the guys who study astronomy and things like that, have concluded that the Halley comet, which comes around every 76 years, is the star of Bethlehem. It's the star that was seen by the Magi at the birth of Christ. Anyway, in that same year, 1910, when this comet showed up, Kimbangu surprised his friends and everybody else by announcing that he would be born again in 1918. Right? It's 1910. He's about 23 years old, but he says he will be born again in 1918. And he's saying this when this comet has shown up. I'd like to know what you guys think about that when we get to the discussion. All right. Now, moving on, there was even an instance where Kimbangu was playing with his cousins and they were throwing one of the tropical fruits that they have in the Congo region. And, you know, the fruit hit a cousin of his and Kimbangu had him cry and he ran out. And, you know, the book says that, you know, to comfort his cousin, he took the fruit and threw it in the air and it turned into a bird and flew away. Now, you know, you can choose to believe it or not, doesn't matter. It's just an instance that is recorded of something that identifies him as not so ordinary. Similarly, he was playing with his friends one time and they had a palm nut. And this one was a bad palm nut that was kind of getting rotten or something. And it splashed its juices on the boy's t-shirt and stained it. And Kimbangu placed his hand on the stain and the stain went away. And at the same time, a fresh nut was reproduced in Kimbangu's hand. You can find that on page 137. Anyway, that's just about Kimbangu and his childhood. Let's talk more about Kimbangu in preparation for his work. Okay, so in this book, we see that I'm gonna read from page 138. It says, from 1918, Kimbangu started to isolate himself for meditation. From 1918. That's the same year that he said he would be born again. All right. Now, keep that year in mind because that year will keep coming up a lot, even when we're talking about Simao Toco. Anyway, that's when he started doing preparation. He was preparing for the work that was to come. And he would go quiet for hours. He would go to a small hill away from any noise. And he would sit beneath a favorite tree that he liked and just meditate. And it is here at this site where he used to meditate that Christ appeared to him and said, Kimbangu, my people are disobedient. I have chosen you to be my witness and to conduct my people to the truth and salvation. Your mission will be very difficult, but do not be afraid because I will always be with you. I mentioned that to say that, you know, there is an aspect of anointing. I shouldn't just wake up one day and say, I'm a prophet, or, you know, I'm called by the Most High. There needs to be some aspect of anointing. We see it, we've seen it in the other individuals that we've discussed, and it did happen to Kimbangu, okay? So the kingdom has not yet come for Kimbangu at this point. He is just beginning to prepare for work. And actually, when you read the book, you find that Kimbangu was rejecting that call of Christ in his life. He was kind of like Moses and Jonah. In fact, at one point, Christ reminded him, Isaiah reminded him about Jonah, and what had happened is Kimbangu has gotten this call of Christ on his life that I've just read about. And as you see in this image here, at that point, Kimbangu is in Kamba, where he lives. He decides to take off like Jonah on foot. So you can think of him as being this little guy on the image here. He walks that distance to Kinshasa. He even abandons his wife and 3 kids because he's in denial. He doesn't want to accept this call of Christ on him. So he flees to Kinshasa, okay? But even in Kinshasa, which was called Leopoldville, he still gets more appearances of Isaiah, of Christ, and more voices of Christ telling him to go back to Nkamba and start his mission, okay? In Kinshasa, he goes and he gets a job. Oops, excuse me. He goes to Kinshasa, he gets a job. I mean, he's just struggling with this kingdom coming on his life. He gets a job, and 3 times when it's payday for the first 3 months, whenever he goes to receive his pay, he finds that his pay has already been taken. And the boss says, the person who took it was you. In fact, shows him his signature. The first 2 times it happened, his co-workers, they were feeling for him. They knew he was an honest guy. He couldn't be trying to get paid twice. They even surrounded him on payday to make sure that, they can be witnesses to say he didn't count to get his salary. He was here. And sure enough, when the boss came out and called his name so that he can pay him, the boss called Kimbangu first. Okay. And Kimbangu, or at least somebody that appeared to be Kimbangu, went and got their pay. But the co-workers were outside with Kimbangu, and they say Kimbangu was called last. In fact, they had surrounded him. Anyway, long story short, after that 3rd time, he realized that Christ was putting pressure on him to accept the call on his life. And so he left Kinshasa and went back to Nkamba. Okay, that was him struggling, and that was him not experiencing the kingdom. Oops, this thing is jumping around. Okay, so that's him struggling, that's him resisting, which I'm explaining to show that we all go through that. It's not always a perfect line where you're told this and you do it immediately. It's just like Moses, just like Jonah, all those guys, they were resisting it. So he fled to Kinshasa, but eventually Isaiah had his way and he had to go back. Okay. Now, let's talk about the kingdom. So that was a kingdom not coming yet for him. Let's talk about the kingdom being near. And for those of you who are watching this, and maybe you didn't watch the last session we had, part 3, we talked about the status of the kingdom. How is it, or why is it that sometimes the kingdom has not yet come, yet sometimes it's near, or it's here, or it's yet to come in the future? And if you haven't watched that session, I encourage you to watch that session. But one key thing that I did explain is that the kingdom of Nzambi is simultaneously near, here, and to come. Simultaneously. That's a mystery we can discuss later. But anyway, let's talk about the kingdom being near for Simon Kimbangu. Okay? I'm going to hop over here to a different page, give you another instance of an experience that Kimbangu had. So on the evening of April 5, 1921, Kimbangu made an unusual request to his wife. Now, remember, this is after he has gone back to Nkamba and accepted. So He went back towards the end of February, and now it's April 5th, and he tells his wife, tomorrow morning, he asked her to ring the church bell on the following day at 6 o'clock in the morning. As requested, his wife Muilu, at exactly 6 o'clock on April 6th, rang the church bell, and the first church service by Kimbangu was conducted in Nkamba. So now the kingdom is near in Kimbangu's life. He has accepted, he's going to have a church service. So he finishes the church service, and the next day was a market day, and he's walking to this marketplace, and he's actually going to sell tobacco, even if he didn't smoke. He's doing some business. And on the way, Christ prompts him to stop by the house of a lady called Nkiantondo. She had been severely ill for weeks. She used to have these headaches that were continuous and chronic, and her memory had even begun to fade. So he boldly walks into her homestead, finds her there with her relatives and family, walks into the house where they are. They receive him respectfully. Then he asked everybody to leave except Nkiantondo's husband and her immediate family members. He knelt down for a brief prayer and took Nkiantondo's arm and said, Nkiantondo, in the name of Isaiah of Nazareth, be healed and stand up. At everyone's surprise and amazement, Nkiantondo stood up and was completely healed. Okay, so now we see the kingdom has begun to come as he accepts the call. All right, now here we go again with another situation where you might say it's not come. Okay, in mid-April, same month, remember he has started his ministry in April. Same month, this was on April 6th that I just talked about, and April 5th. So mid-April is around the 15th. Kimbangu and many other people from Nkamba went to a funeral of Nzuzi, okay, nearby place. And there they met the parents, and the father asked Kimbangu to approach the coffin, and if there's anything he can do, he raises the son, who was called Nzuzi. The father was called Vindu, and the mother was called Mafuta. The father asked him to raise the son. And here Kimbangu talks to the mother, but she's a bit hesitant. In fact, the way she said it, she said, you know, I would like my son back if that is truly possible. And then there was another family friend who was also not of much faith. In fact, he was mocking Kimbangu and was saying, good morning, people's healer, you know, and things like that. But anyway, this is what happened. Kimbangu took the arm of the deceased or the dead boy called Nzuzi, and he said, Nzuzi, resurrect in the name of Yesaya. From his funeral bed, Nzuzi opened his eyes, and the crowd could not believe what had just happened. The village was under exuberation and screaming with joy. Unfortunately, this joy was short-lived because Nzuzi closed his eyes again and slept forever. Okay, and this happened twice again in two other villages with two people. One was called Bumputu and another one was called Nkunga, in two different towns. And it's attributed to the fact that the people did not have enough faith. So kingdom not coming, kingdom being here. That is what exactly I'm explaining was happening there. All right, let me move on to some other examples about Kimbangu. Now, there are reports also about Kimbangu and bilocation, or what bilocation is, that the ability to appear in two different places at the same time. I'm going to go through this one a little bit fast because I see we're getting close on time, and I've not even started on the second guy, Mr. Toko. All right, so what happens here is in 1948, at this point, Kimbangu has been imprisoned. Kimbangu was imprisoned from 1921 to 1951, 30 years. So he has been in prison, and Kimbangu is down here in Lubumbashi. This is where the African Kimbangu is. There happens to be a gentleman, an African gentleman, who had been traveling on this Congo River, going to Kisangani, and had gotten into a fight with a colleague, actually a white European colleague. And they broke into a fight, and eventually he was sent back from Kisangani to the police station in Kinshasa. And that gentleman is in the prison cell in Kinshasa. And then when they're in the prison cell, in comes a European who has been put in prison because they didn't have identification and passport and things like that. Yet he had flown in to the airport on this side of Republic of Congo without documents like a passport and ID. So the guy has been put in the prison cell with this other African guy. And when the European guy is being checked into the prison cell, he's asked his name, and he says his name is Simon Kimbangu. Okay. And the police are like, dude, Simon Kimbangu is an African. And this guy is like, so, I mean, that's my name. What does it matter? That's my name. And so the police in Kinshasa call the police in Lubumbashi. And they confirm and ask them, is Kimbangu there, the African Kimbangu? And they say, yes, he's here. He's been here for 27 years. He hasn't left. In fact, he's in his cell right now. So the police in Kinshasa tell them, can you check and see, make sure it's him? And they're like, yes, it's him. Can you check and see, does he have some marks on his neck when he was being transported from Kinshasa to Lubumbashi? They say yes. Then now the police in Lubumbashi ask the police in Kinshasa, can you check that guy, the European Kimbangu? Does he have those marks? And they do confirm he also has those marks. So that was a case of by location. And not just by location, but something to do with skin mutation. How did Kimbangu pull that off? Unless it was with the power of the Most High. Okay. Now, there have also been cases of apparitions. Apparitions are appearances that are supernatural, or at least with some unexplained method that you see the appearance of people who are not expected to be seen or to appear. The one that caught my eye happened in my country of Kenya, in Nairobi. So it says here in this book that there was a four-member delegation of African Americans headed by Dr. Ramona Tasco of Oakland, California. And they left the US for Congo, Kinshasa. They were going to Kinshasa there in December 2000. December 2000. Okay. So they go to Kinshasa. They finish what they're doing there. They were actually going to Nkamba to visit the town of Kimbangu. That's what the purpose of their trip was. They were going to visit the Kimbanguist community, and they were welcome well. They did their trip. They finished. On their return leg, they were flying through Nairobi in order to come back to the US. So they get to the hotel in Nairobi, and a concierge helps them. A gentleman at the concierge, the front desk, helps them with their bags to their room. And Dr. Ramona is so pleased with the concierge and how friendly and helpful he is and respectful. She asks, what's your name? And the concierge says, Simon Kimbangu. Dr. Ramona says, really? And you work here? Yes, ma'am, replied Kimbangu as he was leaving the room. Dr. Tasco tried to retain his attention and wished he could wait a little bit so that she could thank him with some gratuity or tip. But Kimbangu left in a hurry. After settling in their room, Dr. Tasco decided to go downstairs to the lobby to give a tip to Kimbangu for carrying their luggage. After searching at the lobby, Kimbangu was nowhere to be found. So they decided to ask the hotel manager, "We are looking for Simon Kimbangu, one of your concierges." Dr. Tasco asked the hotel manager. The manager says, "We have no concierge at this hotel with the name Simon or Kimbangu." That was that. All right. Take a moment to breathe in. Let's talk about Simao Toco. Hopefully I can be done with this in about 10 minutes, as we need to discuss a lot. All right, Simao Toco was born on February 24th, 1918. Here's that year again, 1918. You can remember what Kimbangu said about that. Please make some notes about what you think about that. We'll talk about it in the discussion. Now, we cannot talk about Simao Toco without talking about the apparitions or the appearances of a lady in the sky in a place called Fatima, Portugal, in 1917. Those appearances in Fatima, Portugal, began exactly 9 months to the day before Toko was born. Why? We'll talk about that during our discussion. So Simao Toco, born 24th of February, 1918, died December 31st, 1983. I don't even know if I should say that he died. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Got some picture here of a very good friend of mine. I don't know if he's joining the call today, but I'm giving credit to the Bantu Tokoista Sikama group that you see listed down here. Got this information from their channel, and that is our brother Tusamba there. So the meaning of the word Simao comes from the two letters S and M, which Simao in itself means Siam in Dutch, or Simo in Finnish, or Semen in Ukrainian. That's how they say it. But Simao is the same as Semo, which means to create. SM. SM is MS, which is Mosi, reversed. So just like we say Sema in Swahili, which is to say speak, or Sema in Kikongo, which is to create, that's where Simao comes from. In the book of Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 64, it says, "You, my children, be brave and fearless men in observing the law, for you will reach the glory. Here you have Simon, or Simon, your brother. I know that he is a man with capacity. Hear him continually, and he will be a father to you." Okay. And it is from the word Simao, or SM, that we get the seed, or semen, or sperm. All right. Another sister here, Sister Speshi. You know, if you get a chance, people go online, look up this channel, watch these videos. These are the people who are at the early days of the awakening, and they're putting this information out before we even knew what the awakening was. So here, Sister Speshi was explaining what is the meaning of the word Toko. Okay, means seed, also means renewal, means male child, as well as young man, spouse, bridegroom, and so on. Make note of the word or the description male child. I'm sure we'll come into that when we're having our discussion about Fatima. Male child. Thank you, Sister Speshi, and that group, Bantu Tokoista Sikama. All right. Simao Toco was imprisoned by the Portuguese and in Angola, as well as the Belgian Congo, the Belgians in Congo, DRC, when he would go. He was imprisoned, I think it was over maybe 12 years or something like that. If I'm incorrect, somebody will correct me during the discussions, please. But these are some of the places that he was imprisoned in. 1950, Leopoldville, which is Kinshasa. And then many of this, the rest are in Portugal, where he was returned to at some point before being exiled to Portugal itself, you know. They imprisoned him first in Leopoldville, Congo. Then they took him to Angola, in many of these prisons here. Then they flew him all the way to Portugal. You know, why were they doing this? Because of the signs and wonders that he was performing and the crowds that he was drawing, which were in competition to the Catholics and the Protestants and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, there is a story that happened in 1959 around January 4th. And I got this information from Michael Mass's channel. Give credit where it's due. There's a story that is told throughout Central Africa, that whole Congo region. And it was witnessed by a lot of people, probably in the hundreds or thousands. The people claim that Simao Toco unleashed his army, and citizens of Leopoldville, Kinshasa, saw about 1,000 small muscular men, the size of dwarfs. They probably look like what this image shows, who fought the Belgian army. In fact, one witness saw a dwarf flip a 5-ton truck with one arm. The Belgian soldiers fired at these dwarfs to no effect. The colonial army of the Belgians was forced to retreat, and the little men disappeared suddenly just as they had appeared. Okay, the following year, 1960, DRC was a new independent country. Back then it was called Zaire. And it was called that way from 1965 to around 1997 when they changed the name to DRC. So, some signs and wonders there. There were a few attempts to kill Simao Toco. The first one I heard of was where he was being thrown off a plane, or they were attempting to throw him off of a plane. We'll talk about that in this discussion. But in this case that I have on the screen, I'm going to talk about, there's a gentleman on the left here. His name is Kahandi, Adelino Kahandi. He was a cook, someone who cooks in the kitchen. And he witnessed this attempt to kill Simao Toco. There was a tractor, and Simao Toco was asked to go fix something at the front. And Mr. Palmer was on the tractor and turned it on, and it did a lot of damage to Simao Toco. Let's read an eyewitness account. Again, I'm borrowing this from Bantu Tokoista. Thank you, Sister Speshi. Thank you, everybody at Bantu Tokoista. Brother Benika, Brother Tsamba, everybody who's been part of that group. So this is a testimony as borrowed from that channel. One of the Portuguese foremen named Palmer suddenly emerges and addresses Toko in an authoritative tone saying, "Hey, Simon, do you see this tractor? There are crazy weeds blocking the machine down there. Go rip them out." The foreman challenged. Knowing the foreman's secret intention, Simon placed himself under the machine. At the precise moment when Simon Toco Mayamona is fully engaged under the steel monster, the foreman, who has taken the wheel of the tractor in the meantime, pulls out and steps over Simon's body. Awed by the horrible spectacle, Kanhandi, the cook, stands motionless where he was standing. Simao Toco's inanimate and broken body lies, lifeless, on the ground. It is at this moment that the miracle takes place. Under Kanhandi's incredulous eyes, the disjointed body of Simon Toco shifts beneath the mobile earth into which the machine had thrust it. He recomposes himself as if by enchantment, and suddenly the man of Fatima is on his feet with a scratch on his right nail. The Portuguese foreman, who had turned on the tractor seat to contemplate his crime, is seized with panic when he sees Simao Toco alive, shaking off his mud-stained clothes. "Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer." These are the only words he speaks to the man who just inflicted such cruel action on him. As for Kanhandi, he believed Nzambi on the same day. Kanhandi is the cook. His family, Kanhandi's family, and he became He and his family believed the same day. His family and he became Simao Toco's first disciples in southern Angola. It was on this day that for the first time, the prophet clearly revealed his identity, hidden behind his smallpox-marked face. And then he spoke about it later, and he was actually quoting John 10, 17, 18. And this is what Simao Toco says. This is why the Father loves me, because I give my life to take it again. Nobody takes it from me, but I hand it over myself. I have power to give it and power to take it. This commandment I have received from my Father. Here's Brother Benika. All right. So, picture that you see here is after another attempt on Simao Toco's life. And when he returned, this attempt was in Portugal. When he returned to Angola, he pulled up his shirt to show what had been done to him. So what had been done to him? While in Portugal, Portuguese authorities made up an excuse to do surgery on Simao Toco. They claimed there was something like a pimple, a growth, or something on his chest. And they decided they were going to perform surgery. But really what they were after was to find out the reason behind his invisibility, So they performed an operation on his chest under the pretext of removing a tumor or something like that. Well, they removed his heart and placed it on a metal pan or a metal bowl. Simao Toco came to, meaning he woke up while he was on the operating table. He opened his eyes, he sat up, he looked at them, and demanded his heart back. I don't know exactly how they put it back, but, that wasn't the end of him. He didn't die there. Obviously, he didn't die because he came back later, and this is a picture taken of him when he came back to Portugal later. So they removed his heart, but he didn't die. And it was put back one or another, such that he was still able to be alive and come back to Portugal. And there's the picture that you find when you Google his name. Extraordinary. Who was this man? Okay. He had also prophesied, just like we saw with other people who have prophesied. He had prophesied and told the authorities one time in Portugal that the day two people, a black person and a white person, will come to him is the day that he will go back. That will be the time for him to go back to Angola, and that he would not die in Portugal. And here on this picture, I see one white gentleman, a European. I believe his name was Brother Feronia. And there's a couple of black people here, this one and another one back here, but one of them, I'm not sure which one, was Brother Dongala Garcia, just like he had prophesied. When he arrived in this port, or in this place he's disembarking from, the Portuguese authorities were planning to assassinate him. And so they even offered him a vehicle to transport him to his destination where he was going. But he had some foresight of this assassination attempt, and so he declined it. He declined the vehicle transportation. And instead, he walked from this port and walked all the way amidst the crowds until he got to where he was going. And that way, they were not able to assassinate him or kill him while he was being transported. All right, I think I'll finish off with this one here. So the gentleman you see on your left is the Pope in the Pope between 1958 and 1963, Pope John the 23rd. Okay, that's an official photograph. Now, while Simao Toco was still in Angola, I think it was around, well, he had come back. Yes, he had come back from Portugal around 1962. This Pope sent two top-level reps or representatives or envoys to investigate who Simao Toco really was. The first guy had some ill motives and he got sick, I think with malaria or some other tropical diseases. So he never actually met Simao Toco. But the second guy had a better sense of humanity, got to meet Simao Toco. And so the second guy asked Simao Toco who he was. Simao Toco told him to go tell the Pope or his master to read Matthew chapter 11, verse 2 to 6. Now, notice what it says there in that verse. Now, when John, turns out that this Pope is also called John, had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples, just like this Pope sent 2 of his disciples, you know. Anyway, we know the rest of the story. What did Yeshua tell them? Go and show John again those things which you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel of the kingdom preached to them. And blessed is he who shall not be offended in me. This is exactly the same message Isaiah gave John the Baptist via the disciples. What does this mean if Simao Toco is giving the Pope the same message? Brother Makudi, sorry, time is given. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, it has been some time since this great message has came out about our great, if you want to say, modern day messianic prophets. I really do appreciate this message because what it does more than anything is it lets you know that it gives you a more personal account of what a Christ-like being is able, Christ-like beings actually lived and what they were able to do, the things that they went through for the message that they lived to enable the nations with, and also what fruit bared from the seed that they planted over the generations. See, it's a great message. It hasn't been fully revealed also. That's the other thing, there's more and more that is revealed over the years. As you said, Elder Matabi, that has been years, So yeah, everyone, if you are watching this online, pray about this message. Go and do some research, like Elder Matawi said last week, about this message. You might learn something. Ask yourself, why would the Most High make a man to do things that's similar to what was being done in the Bible? Or should I say multiple men and women to do things similar to what was done in the Bible in modern times?
Thank you, Brother Makudi. Thank you. I like those questions. Those are very poignant questions. Mama Roya daughter, go ahead. And then Brother Patrick, Elder Patrick.
Thank you. you know, growing up, I grew up a Sabbath keeper. I grew up a covenant keeper. And so my biblical journey or my spiritual journey was a little different from most of the people who grew up, in Sunday church. But so I kind of knew the message of the covenant and, but I had no idea that we were the people. I hadn't, like, that was the biggest shock. And all my life I had been reading the scriptures. So, I think that's what made it easier for me to grasp. And so, during my, what we call awakening, my spiritual awakening, that was a big surprise to me about the identity of the people. And while I'm still processing that, I hear about this man, this Simao Toco. And in no way, shape, or form, my first encounter was that I had two dreams. I dreamt this man twice. And so, they were just random dreams. I never imagined that there would be anything about him later, but it didn't bother me. It made me put me on the alert that I had dreamed the same man twice. And but I just put it in the back of my mind. I let it go. And when I hit upon the Bantu Tocoista channel and they started talking about this Simao Toco, I was like, but I've seen this man in my dream. This is the man I saw in my dream. Like, on top of the shock of the real identity of the people, here's this one, but when it made it, the fact that I had dreamed him, and the first dream I had, like, he did like a whole deliverance on me. I'm thinking I'm good spiritually. I'm walking my walk and I'm good. And this man did a deliverance on me like nobody. Like, the cleansing that he did on me was incredible. Like, I never even imagined. It made me sick, And then the second encounter, was a totally different encounter. He opened up a door for me. And so it made it much easier when I started listening, hearing about this man, for me to digest it and process it. It took a little while, but it made it easier that I had the dreams about him. And so it's the way we were taught in growing up in Christianity. We were taught that after Christ, that was it. No more prophets, no more nothing, and then we, how our continent was so demonized that, the story is that nothing good comes out of Africa. Everything is demonized, so the last thing that I was looking for in my spiritual journey is a prophet coming out of Africa. And so, that one took a lot for me to understand. But the fact that I had seen him in my dreams, and at the times that I saw him, at like very important times in my life, turning points in my life, in my awakening, that is what made it easy. And that's what made me want to hear more about him and take it seriously. But it is very difficult when you grow up in Christianity to understand that, like you said, the king, he says, I am. I am is present continuous. So it means he who was and is to come. It is continuous. That's why, he kept saying that I am. The Bible is a living book. The scriptures are living. We're living those words right now. So it is present continuous. And, with that understanding, that made it easier for me to understand and to accept, and to want to hear more about this man, and now I can't hear enough, because it is empowering. It is very empowering, and I urge people out there to, when you hear things for the first time, it comes as a shock to you. It's not easy to process because of the way we were taught. But just listen, hear, and if you're not too sure, file it, put it on the back shelf of your mind, and I guarantee you that if you're seeking him, he will find you, because he found me. And get that.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mama Margaret. I had not seen you. Thank you so much, Mama Royal daughter. Welcome, Mama Matuzola. Elder Patrick, time is given, and then Sister Terian, and then Mama Matuzola.
Thank you, brother. I'm sorry. I'm in Mama Matizola's town, state. I'm in New Orleans, Mama Matizola. I forgot to let you know. So, yes, very interesting conversation that you're having here. Like I have said, this is what I could say is, or what the Spirit is telling me, is that there have been, like I did allude last time, there have been many prophets in Africa that have come before Toko, and we didn't listen to them. We didn't listen to them at all. Like I said, there was a lady from Congo who turned into a leopard, and there was also Chaminuka out of the Mashona people, who also predicted that there will be people. His words were, there will be people without needs that will come to this continent to take over this continent. And Shaka Zulu's woman said, we will never rule this land. We will never rule this land. These were prophets who were saying this, but it was already blackened as saying it is black magic. It is something that is evil that is coming out. These people are just saying this, but these were prophets, and they were hanged. They were hanged on a tree. What Simao Toco did was that he hit you where you all hold dearly, which is the scriptures. He broke the scriptures in relation to him. And that's how you were able to relate to everything that he said. He pointed to the scriptures, that the scriptures are all about you. And I am the living. That's where you were able to relate. Whenever he was confronted about something, he responded with the scriptures, because that's what you were given by the Roman Catholic Church, the scriptures. If anybody wants to convince a Christian to awaken, you have to defeat them using the scriptures. Because if you can't explain the scriptures, they will say, oh, I don't understand what you're saying, because this is what's written. So to convince the people in a solely to let them know he related to the scriptures. He pointed to the scriptures. And therefore, you were able to be convinced to understand this is the man of God. Now, I presented one time and I said, Moses, had a special relationship with the divinity. And yet, Isolele that followed him out of Babylon were looking to miracles for them to believe. Now, the question I have for you is, are you looking at Simao Toco's miracles the same way Babylon was looking at how Musa separated the waters? Are you forgetting what his real message is, that you're looking to his survivability when he was here on this planet Earth? You need to think, what was his true message when he said he will come again? Is he within you? Are we looking for the same Simao Toco who was the living? Or are we looking for a different Simao Toco who is within? That is what you need to question. His task was complete. His task was complete. Now, what is our task to move forward? Do not fall for the same mistake Isolele made in Babylon when they were crossing. Moses showed them. He brought manna from heaven. He parted the Red Sea. And he performed a lot of miracles that were inspired by the divinity so that people could believe. But they believed in Moses and not the higher power. So Simao Toco was used by the Father to give the message to us and show us that we are more powerful than what we are. So now, are we still stuck on Simao Toco before? Or are we looking at Simao Toco, the aftermath? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. So other than that, I think once you come to the realization that you are special, you are the one who has these special powers just like Simao Toco had, then you will realize that he lives within you and he is already here. You'll be able to interpret that message. Otherwise, once again, Brother Mutawi, beautiful message. I'll be listening in. I'll be driving, so didn't get to.
Thank you so much, Elder Patrick. Man, he even dials in even if he's on the road. Appreciate it. Is it Sister Terry Ann? Go ahead. How you doing?
I'm okay. We'll no, this is the first time I've heard, well, of these two men of God, men of Yah. And it was just, impressed on me. The powers that they had, that's what Yeshua said he came to give his disciples, those who followed him. And these are things that we should be doing. The power to heal the sick, the power to cast out demons, the power to raise the dead. And, unfortunately, we're not really seeing that power in the body. And, how far fallen we are from what we were supposed to be in the kingdom. That's just a comment. But a question, since Simao Toco, are there any among us who are exhibiting such power, whether on the continent or in the diaspora? That's just my question.
All right. Good question. thank you also for telling us that it's the first time that you're hearing about them. I can tell you you're in the company of many, because I myself did not hear about it. Brother Makudi, I see your hand. I see it. You know, even I didn't know about Simao Toco until maybe 2021 or 20 thereabout, during this awakening when it started. And I think a lot of it has been because, you know, African prophets, African avatars, if you want to call them, have been hidden. The powers that be that control the media, the airwaves, have suppressed the European colonial nations, you know, just like they suppressed these two gentlemen in their local countries. They suppressed them even if they were doing the work of the Most High. They were not happy that they were healing people. They were not happy that they were getting more followers than them, you know, and they connived with the governments, the European governments, to imprison them, to torture them, and all these things. They were basically suppressing the idea of a Black prophet, or even a Black ancient of days, you know, even if it's what is in the scriptures. That's largely why we never got to hear about them. If anybody else knows about any other prophets after Simao Toco, please drop the names in the chat, you know, or share as time allows. But good points. I like that. Mama Matuzola, time is given.
I'm sorry, I can't turn on my camera right now, but I just have a short comment, and I do want to encourage anyone who will listen to this teaching when it's posted to go and investigate, look deeper, investigate these historical documents and things that are actually recorded in history about these people. There is more than what we have been taught in Christianity. And if you don't, if it doesn't agree with your spirit, okay, well, you know, just keep moving, but at least take the time to investigate for yourselves who Simone Kimbangu was, who Simao Toco was. And so with that, I just want to offer this comment. When you were speaking about Kimbangu saying that he would be born again, this gives a whole new, this opens you up to a whole new concept of being born again. This is a whole new this is something totally, you know, outside of the scope of what Christianity have taught with relativity to being born again. So I just want to offer that comment. Okay.
Go ahead, Brother Makudi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick to Sister Terry Ann. There's actually a couple videos of some Ungunzas doing miracles with water out there. I'm actually in the process of bringing them up right now, so I could possibly post them in chat. But yeah, they it's this one where there's a guy, he dried up the lake, and there's another one where he was like sending the water back and bringing it, and then he sent it back and stuff like that. But you'll see for yourself. I won't say too much.
All right. Thank you. Brother Patrick, real quick.
Yeah, real quick, I think Mama Matizola touched on one of the most pivotal points, which is the born again. The born again is actually what has taken us away from our spirituality. The Catholic born again is what has taken us from our own spirituality. It was a way to divert our mind and our soul away from our personal spirituality and taking us to Rome. And so for that reason, that is the one thing when in this awakening you start, you have to undo that born again. You were already born again, but they just came in and diverted you and reprogrammed you into a different direction. Very good point, Mama Matisol. Thank you.
Let me just add a point here. When I was talking about Kimbangu, and I encourage you all to get the book that I posted up there. In this book, there are like 20 prophecies Kimbangu gave. Oh, I see Mama Royal daughter has her copy. Yes, he gave like 20 prophecies, okay? At least those are the ones that were documented here. Now, listen to one of them, or rather some of them. The thief must be arrested with the object that he stole. We will finally have our own sacred book in which hidden scriptures for the Congo people and Black race in general are contained. Okay. An instructor will precede my return to write that book and prepare the coming of the king. Okay. He will be opposed by the generation of his time, but with time, many people will understand and will begin to follow his teachings. Okay. He even, well, I'll give others later. Let's go on. Who am I at? I am at Brother Vincent, then Mama Royal daughter. All right. Brother Vincent, good to see you.
Good to see. Thank you, Brother Douglas. Thank you, everyone. Happy Sabbath to everyone. Just 3 comments. Okay, first, just like everybody else, me had not heard about someone, Toko and Kimbangu. As you said, I think the time was not ripe. The time of the internet has made it possible for us to find out things we couldn't be able to come across. As it was mentioned, all our prophets would be demonized and put in small pockets. You'd only hear about it in your own local area and you'd never get to know anything else. Back to what was being shared today, I picked out 2 things. And for me, those are the things that actually struck me from a different perspective. These fellows had to go to prison. And I was wondering in my mind, why do they have to go to prison? You know? And you talked about Kimbangu, it was something that Brother Douglas mentioned. Just before he started ministry, he did something that he took off from his wife and family. Now, in my mind, what began running through from my spirit was when Yeshua started his ministry, the first thing he did was go away from everybody else to be in the wilderness to prepare for the coming ministry. Okay? When Joseph, before he went to go become prime minister, he had to go through a wilderness experience in his own prison to get ready. And I recall something when he talks about the exodus and the uniting of the 2 blocks, and he says, I will draw them and take them to the wilderness of the people. Now, what I'm picking up is we may be in that scenario whereby we need to be prepared in our minds, because we can't go into that service unless we are prepared to get out of our comfort zones into a place of exclusion with the Most High, so that we can actually become his tools for service. That's what I picked up from that experience of, because it mentioned he went to prison. Simon Toko comes, is taken into prison. What are these guys doing in prison? What do you do when you're in prison? The only thing you can do, you go to seek, you are being excluded and kept away from everybody else, so that you can be with the Most High. That is what I picked up from that experience of Simon Kimbangu. Now, the other thing, Brother Patrick, and this is the second time he's mentioned it. I think he mentioned last time about the lady who turned into a leopard or something. Well, we still have that in Africa. And believe it or not, we still take it to be strange powers. There are people who have those kinds of abilities. They are able to change into animals and traverse long distances. So the person will come and turn up here in the morning, and he'll turn into a leopard in the night and travel to the other end. But it happens within certain communities. I won't tell you that it's everybody. It seems to happen through certain communities. But what I also picked up from that army of small short guys, you read the book of Joshua, and you read about the powers and the abilities of the sons of Jacob. Just the sons themselves, the 12, what you call patriarchs, the 12 sons, Judah, Judah and Simeon and everybody else. These guys had abilities that we've been lied to, so we've taken them not for granted, so we do not exercise them. Maybe some of those abilities would now be manifest in what people like Simon Toko are doing, because the scripture actually says we should be able to do what Yeshua did and do even more. So we should not be wondering when he's raising the dead, when Simon Toko Kimbangu is raising the dead and healing the sick. It's supposed to be a lifestyle for us. So that's the biggest challenge we're having for us now in our lifetime, because we can no longer claim ignorance. We know now who we are. We know where we are supposed to be in the kingdom. We know we are, and we should walk as the sons of the Most High. So it's an expectation. So it's something now we need to go and shake the heavens until we get it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Brother Vincent. Appreciate that. Mama Royal daughter.
Yes. In Christianity, we were taught about the Most High, and then he sent his son Jesus, and that was it. But really and truly, we weren't taught to look at the Bible or at the scriptures. And if things are written in the scriptures, we weren't just taught not to see them. In Isaiah 11, the Most High said that he would send his son. He says, and there shall come out of the root, the rod of the stem of Jesse. Jesse is the father of David. A branch shall grow out of his roots, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his eye. Now we understand that is Isaiah that he is talking about. Isaiah came out of the lineage of King David. But he came and his main function was to reconcile man back to God. But that spirit, the Spirit of the living God, has been here on earth functioning in other people, but we have just not been taught to see that. When Nzambi told Moses, I will send you to Pharaoh, and I will make you God in the eyes of Pharaoh, because Pharaoh had his magicians, but even Pharaoh's magicians could not do what Moses and Aaron were able to do. So to them, he looked like God, because he could do stuff, miracles that they could not do. And they ended up being beholden to him. When he did something, they had to ask him to undo it. They could not undo it. And so that was the Spirit of the Most High operating through Moses, through Joshua, through Daniel, through Samuel. These are the spirits of the Most High. But we have been taught that he only came, he created the earth, and then there was Isaiah. Absolutely not. Nzambi's plan from the beginning of time, he had made the plan of reconciliation. Bible, we have seen him appear in different people. Isaiah came to open back the door that we had closed. He came to do something that we could not do ourselves. And so that was just, he was the one that carried all 7 spirits of the Most High. That's why him and his father are one. He carried all 7 spirits of the Most High. The Most High said, I am 7 spirits. And Isaiah operated in all of them. The one he operated in the most was the Word. He came as the Word because Satan defeated the world. Satan defeated man with the Word. So Isaiah came as the Word so that Satan could not defeat him. Taught us, well, there's nothing happening after Isaiah until he comes back. Absolutely not. This is the Most High's world. And so every time he wants to operate, he will use a body to operate in. Isaiah came as a pure body because of the mission that he had. But the Most High has been here throughout history many times, operating in different people for different purposes. And we were not taught that in Christianity. So when we hear of prophets, and especially coming out of Africa, people go berserk. As soon as they hear Africa, they don't even want to hear it. But the Most High, the Bible is an African book. All the people in there are African. So I don't even understand. Egypt is in Africa. I don't understand why people, it has been demonized so much that people have a hard time making the connection between Africa and the Most High. You know, so the continuation of the presence of the Most High. Even when Isaiah left, he said, I will leave with you the Comforter. So he has never taken his spirit away from the earth. He has been here in so many manifestations. Simao Toco and Simon Kimbangu came for a different purpose. Simao Toco says, after me, Africa and its diaspora will be free. When he spoke of that 1960 prophecy, Africa and all its diaspora became free from 1960 onward. All of its diaspora. And Simao Toco spoke that prophecy. So they came for different functions. They came to operate. The Most High sent his spirit to operate on the earth for different functions. Because we know the enemy that we're fighting. He says it's not flesh and blood, it's spiritual. And so there are some things only the Most High can do. There are chains that only the Most High can break. And so he has come here times to operate, and he uses different people. And he says in this last days, he will pour out his spirit upon all flesh. So if you can't believe that men like Simao Toco and Simon Kimbangu existed, then you can't believe that the Most High can operate through you. But that is our hope. So it's like you're waiting for the Most High to operate through you, but you can't believe that he operated through other people. So we really have to, in our awakening, make peace with the fact that the Most High, it has been here, he is here, and he will continue. That's why I said he is the I am. He says, he that was and is to come. he continues. And he will continue to operate. He continues to operate in men because men lost this world. And so through the man will have to regain the world that he lost. So that is why the Spirit of the Most High, he made us kings of the earth. So he can come and do the work for us, but if he does that, then he will be king and we will not. So he wants us to regain the world that we have lost. So he will be operating through us to do his work. Ingita.
Yeah. Mama Margaret, welcome. Good to see you again. Do you have a comment?
Okay, I'll just share a little bit. I want to speak about Simao Toco. Like coming into the awakening, we at one point everybody was like, at whatever boundary we were at the time and experiencing different things, and coming into like explosion, the awakening, like we pray and and the lockdown and why this happening and why that happening. But my journey was like I was not in Trinidad, I was in California, and one day I wanted to come back home. I said, I don't want to be there. I want to get back home. And so I said, I would call Michael, and I would call this other guy, and I would say, pray for me, because you're feeling like you're stuck, but you can't understand why all these things is happening to you. And one day I opened the Bible and I was reading, and I saw in the scriptures where like Nzambi said, wherever I box in, I fence in, no man can open that. I was like, what? So like, I kept quiet to myself and my heart sinking inside. I said, okay. So I decided not to pursue that no more. I said, look, I can't ask somebody to pray for me because he's telling me, hey, I box you in here. Nobody can open this way for you. So like, I have to just humble myself and continue praying, and and he will just jam me sometime. I'm in the middle of a meal in the kitchen. I was like, and I started to cry, and I was going like, oh God, Father, yes, to get my attention. I was like, oh, all these things and the tears and everything is like, okay, I have to be, humble yourself. Like, I'm humbling you here now, I'm humbling in this place because I have no money accent. I want to get on accent, go to buy me a ticket, and no, I'm not buying any tickets. Like, oh my gosh, you have me at the hem there. And you just have to pray and okay, and it's in all this, in the middle of the day, 2 o'clock, it just feel like arrows that's sticking, shooting at you. You know what it is, all the demons and even shooting at you. And in the middle of that rest, I jump on my knees and I started praying, and you have you there and you have to pray and repent and everything. But in the midst of it all, in the night, one time I saw the Most High, like from a distance, and he does elevate me a little bit, and I'm like, wow, I see him. So, he making believe, I believe in this. And when I think I hear Brother Vincent spoke about the short man, I don't know if it's that what you really said, the short man. I think I hear him say that. So when I learned about Simao, we learned about Simao Toco, and when he would tell Belgium they have to get out of the Congo at a certain time, and he gave them 10 days. I think some amount of days he gave them to leave. And when they started to fight, and these short men, I think it was the pygmies, they were fighting, and I think they couldn't see, but the strength of these men was just flinging them, and tons, truck and big, they was just scattering them out from the land. And as I heard him say that, I remember in, like, I was going through like real spiritual, battle. And on my bed, he just opened my eyes and I see these 2 short men just by the bed. One has a whip in his hand and the other one was just bright eyed. And they sit there like he put them to guard me in my bed. He allowed me to see them, and I closed back my eye. And out the door, there was this lighted angel standing out the door. I was like, wow, yeah, light outside the door. He just had his guards there, and I said, wow, but he is making me believe all of these things is going on with me. All of these things is happening to me. I am still guarding you. I still couldn't come to no penetrate where I was asleep, where I was dwelling. And one time I heard Ben Nika talk about Prince Michael. He said, you think Prince Michael is a short? He said, it's just he's so big and huge and tall. I was like going down the stairs one day to go outside in California. And this big, tall, huge figure just stand there. And not more than all the time. And if I would be in the kitchen, I might just be, humming or praying. I would just feel his presence. I look at the door will be open during the day. And this person always.
Can you hear me, Mama Margaret? I think you froze on your side. Oh, I think her internet connection froze. Can anybody hear her still?
No, she's frozen.
Okay. Oh, man. Can't wait for her to get back. I think she got disconnected. Mama Margaret, if you can hear me, we cannot hear you. It's frozen on your end, but reconnect and come back. I was just receiving and listening, so good. You can tell from her enthusiasm. Let me see if I have, all right. Sister Terrian asked for the link for the book. I did post it there in case anybody wants it. I see, I know Brother Benika is on here and he's been quiet. He likes to be quiet and just listen, but I'm going to ask him, to share whatever he feels like sharing about, Kimbangu or Toko. Yeah, Brother Benika, are you able to speak?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
See me, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, my camera is off. Yeah. About the family. Abariako.
When you say Abariako nowadays, the old school people, they say Missouri Sana. That's a formal way. But if you're like the .com generation, you just say Poa. That means I'm cool. Poa.
Oh, Poa. Okay, great. That's great. Yeah. No, Matonda, Mutavi. Thanks for the time. I'm here listening, it is good to listen as well. So, and I learned a lot from listening. And thank you very much for that lesson. That was extremely powerful, and to say that there have been many prophets in Africa, especially back in the days, back in that time of Prophet Kimbangu. Basically, there were four. There were four prophets. There were four prophets in which were sent for a very special mission. In order to confirm, if I can say, one of the passage from the book of Daniel. But anyway, that's another conversation. There were four. He said Simao Kimbangu and Simao Toco. There were three Simon, three Simon. Simao Kimbangu, Simao Toco, Simao Kimbangu, Simon Paddy, and Masu Andre. Four. There were four ones. But of course, as you have already spoken, everything from Africa, from Africa, nothing good can come from Africa, the world says. So, but we're very glad that you were speaking about that. And to tell you, Simao Toco Simao Kimbangu is alive. We will mention about Simao Toco, but I want to emphasize about Simao Kimbangu is alive. And I think that for many, especially people in the land, you've been hearing about, okay, Elder Mutaga will just say, Matanda Masaka, all right? I don't want to open another conversation. I just have to say Simao Toco is alive. Simao Kimbangu is alive, Although both of them, they have a congregation, and due to ignorances, people fight, Sometimes you will hear people from the followers of Kimbangu, they will say Simao Kimbangu is greater than Simao Toco, and the followers of Simao Toco will say Simao Toco is greater than Kimbangu. So at the end, they will fight, just as John, just as, I will say, Jesus or Yesu, He also had a disciple, and John the Baptist also had a disciple. And believe me, sometimes there was also tension to see who's the strongest one, you know. And the same thing, you know, the Bible said nothing is new under the sun. And as we're speaking, Elder Mutave, I got amazed because as you were mentioning about the prison of Prophet Kimbangu, I was, you know, I was following a series. This series, I hope you can see, family, you can watch. The name of the series, The Chosen. I don't know if some of you have already watched. That was interesting series, you know. As I'm watching that series and I follow the history of Prophet Kimbangu Simao Toco, I see it clearly, you know. And while Christ was busy working through his ministry and stuff, John the Baptist was in jail as well. This same thing just came to my mind when you, Elder Mutavi, when you spoke about Prophet Kimbangu. You know, Simao Toco later on, he comes to show up while Kimbangu is in jail. Same event. I've been asking, but is this a coincidence? But why this same event? And back in, you know, if you watch the series carefully and study the history of Africa, I don't know how to say in English, but if you study, you know, on how the Portuguese, they entered into Africa and how Europe ruled Africa, how they oppress us as compared to how the Roman oppressed, you know, as back in the days, you will see that there is no difference. And while Roman was ruling, you know, they threw John the Baptist into jail. He was in jail because John the Baptist used to confront them, you know. And one thing, Elder Mutav, that is very interesting. You know why John the Baptist, he was thrown into jail and he spent a lot of years. It was just like Kimbangu, you know. John the Baptist was straightforward. If you're wicked, doesn't matter. If you're white, he will tell you. You know, he was not afraid of anybody. And I will say also this, he was not very strategic. I don't know, maybe that's how Nzambi made him because of his mission. It was very straight. It was very straightforward. If he said mistake, he will say it. Different than the Messiah. You know, the Messiah, even in the series, you know, and a couple of more research, you know, the reason why he got arrested very, what can I say? The reason why he got arrested, it was because he didn't hold, you know, the word. You know, as the Spirit revealed to him, he will say it without even thinking. That's why they got mad with him and they put him in jail. Guess what? The same thing happened with Prophet Kimbangu. Same thing. Kimbangu, he was very angry, even until now. As a spirit, when he comes down and he possesses people to speak, he just say it. That's how he is. You know. And later on, I mean, when I see the person of Christ compared to John Baptist, Christ was also very, I will say, more passionate and more strategic. You know, that's why people got mad at him, because they were like, if you are the Messiah, why you don't confront the Roman emperor, you know? And yet you are telling us, you know, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God. Wait a minute, who are you? You are supposed to free us and stuff, you know? So he was more, we'll say, he was more used to cooperate, you know, more, if I can say. I hope you understand me. And when you come to Simao Toco, same thing. Same thing. There was even a time when Simao Toco was called for an interview. He said, "Viva Portugal." And the people from the land got mad at him. And they thought that he was a sellout, you know, all the stuff. But that was necessary for the completion of his mission. So, Elder Mutavi, that's what I wanted to say. as you're speaking, especially about the prison and stuff, and when I read the Bible, for me, I see myself, I see my history, and Mama Royal mentioned, the Bible is African book. It is. We don't have to say a lot. Just read and go back to the history. That's what I do. When I'm reading, I read, and later on I close my eyes and I meditate for a second. I allow the Spirit to take me back, back even in slavery, and to bring me back where we are right now. I see myself. Yes, that's all I wanted to say, Matave, Maton Masaka, for sharing that as well.
Thank you so much, Brother Benika. When I was doing this research, that is really good stuff. When I was doing this research, it's like I was struggling to just stay focused, because I would find information after information after information, and I want to stay there and read and learn, but I have to stay focused and just prepare the message. You talked about Simao Toco saying Viva Portugal. I actually saw that in a video, but the video is in Portuguese, I think. So I'm reading the subtitles and I understand most Spanish, and there's some Portuguese that sounds like Spanish. So I'm trying to understand Portuguese with my Spanish brain, and I can understand, and it's a young Simao Toco on that video. And I clearly hear him saying Viva Portugal, and this is the time when the Portuguese are just trampling over them, and I was wondering, what is going on here? Why is he saying Viva Portugal? But you're right. We need to dig deep into this stuff, The other thing that I forgot to mention in my presentation, and two of you have reminded me about this, is Simon Kimbangu. His work, what we would call ministry, was 6 months. 6 months, not years. I'm not making a mistake. 6 months, from April 1921 to around October 1921. Then he was put in jail from 1921, October, around there, or September, and until 1951, when he died in jail. So those 6 months in 1921, from the day he did his first service to the day they arrested him, that's when he did all those things. And I didn't even mention all of them. There is a lot more. In fact, if you were to think about the scripture that Brother Vincent talked about, where Isaiah said, you guys will be able to do more than I did, Simon Kimbangu is an example of someone who did more than what Isaiah did. When he started healing people in Kamba, people were coming from all over the Congo Kingdom, those countries I talked to you about. It was so much. It was such that people would leave work. Hospitals were empty. Factories were empty. People were calling in, to go get healing, to go hear the message, to go. And even the train schedules had to be readjusted to create more trains to go down that way. And pretty much it brought the place to a standstill. All roads were leading to Nkamba, in 6 months. It was amazing. The prophecies, oh my goodness. If we had time, I would have read many more of them. I was reading these prophecies and I'm like, that's me right there. One of the prophecies, prophecy number 7, many young men will leave Africa in search of prosperity and the hope of finding a better life in the country of the whites. They will speak all the languages of the white man. You know, one of the things that really ticks me off is sometimes I want to have a conversation, but the person I want to have a conversation with speaks another language like Portuguese, and they don't speak English, and we have no common language. Yet, if we both find our original languages, we could communicate. Okay? Among them, those who go abroad like me, many will be seduced by the material life of the whites, and as a consequence, they will become bait for whites and will be trapped. For those of you in Africa, you don't know this maybe, but you do, some of you. There are a lot of us who left our countries in Africa, came here willingly, but for one reason or another, have not been able to go back, whatever the reason. And so, Kimbangu said, the mortality rate among them will be high, and some of them will never return to Africa and will never see their parents anymore. There are a lot of people, I have seen them, it's very unfortunate, who came here. Sometimes their parents get sick, but for some reason, they're not able to go see them. And they never see them again. Their parents pass away or their relatives. Kimbangu was prophesying this back then, right? One more thing that I thought about just now when I was actually just listening. Remember when I talked about Kintwadi, the description of Kintwadi? It just hit me that Kimbangu and Toko were really in Kintwadi, of course, with the Most High, but they were also in Kintwadi because they were following or doing what the Most High would do. Remember that second description of Ntu, the head, the Most High in Nzambi? What they were doing was the will of Nzambi. So I'm actually looking at them as one person. Kimbangu was Toko, and Toko was Kimbangu. Otherwise, why would he say, I will be born again in 1918? And then Toko is born in 1918. And I did mention about Fatima, Portugal. And this is for the sake of those who watch later on and are not familiar with about the events of Fatima, Portugal. Look it up, Google it, Fatima, Portugal. There's even a movie on Netflix called Fatima, okay? You'll see articles in the newspapers, including the New York Times. There are pictures of thousands and thousands of people who descended on that town to witness those apparitions. And when they witnessed those apparitions, you know, it came out that those 3 little children who were speaking to that lady that was appearing in the clouds, she gave them some secrets. Find out what are those secrets, especially the third one. Find out for yourself. Find out for yourself. Let the Spirit guide you in that journey. Brother Benika, I see I've triggered something in your mind. Go ahead and speak. And then close for us at 1:30. Oh wait, no, I'll hold off. Hold off on the closing. It looks like people are getting worked up. Go ahead, Brother Benika.
No, I just want to add something quick regarding the question of our sister Terry. All right. The question was if there are more, can you just remind more people like him?
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Brother Bantu Toko Sikama. I had asked since Simao Toco, have there been or are there currently any prophets of like him in Africa or among the diaspora right now, or have there been anyone like him since they have come? and have, left at least this physical plane.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sister. Well, sister, I will speak on what I know, right? I can't speak on what I do not know, so I will share the little I know about Simao Toco, right? There is something very powerful about Simao Toco, in which so far, I can say even I do not understand, because this mystery is too much for me to understand, and it's beyond my understanding, if I can say. All right. And, Simao Toco, after he lived, he died physically. All right. He dies physically. And yet he comes back using another body, possessing a 35 young man. And right now, he's leading his people spiritually by using someone else, which is very common in African tradition as well. For us, especially those who are in the land, they understand. But the problem sometimes, when spirit, they come with an evil intention. But Simao Toco has been leading his followers, and these followers are succeeding. But one mystery, Sister Terry, that is still beyond my understanding, is that Simao Toco comes, and amongst his followers, there are people in which we call Vatis. The Vatis are the prophet of today. Vatis is the same thing like a prophet, but he refused, to them to be called the prophet, to provide them from pride, because whenever a person is called a prophet, sometimes, we like to feel too pride, and I am that, I am this, I am that. So you avoid those terminology, but the terms that are used to identify those people, but they are also prophet, is called a Vatis, I think somebody wrote on the chat. If you can study, you can research on that. On the internet, you will find, and whoever was a Catholic, they also will understand this terminology. And if you go on Google and research Vati, you will see that Vati is the same as prophet, and you will find many things else as well. And those, I will say it again, those who are Catholic, especially the priests, the Catholic fathers, they know about this very well. And that is one thing, sister, that so far, those are the people, if I can say, that they've been serving as a prophet. I think it was Mama Royal said that, spoke about Christianity and stuff. And that is one of the things in which is very, English is a problem, family. My language is, Iske Congo, and I speak Portuguese and English sometimes a challenge. But anyway, I'm trying my best to explain. How can I say? Let me say this. In a Christianity, for example, I will say this way, I hope you understand. The only one, in most cases, the only one who is the last word is the pastor. Correct, Sister Terry?
Usually, yes.
Usually, it is the pastor. But amongst the followers of Simao Toco, the last one to have the word, it can be even a 8 years old child, English. Amongst the followers of Simao Toco, the last to have the word sometimes can even be, a 10 years old, who is also a Vati, which is interpreted as a prophet, possessed by the Holy Spirit, to lead the people on how they should work and to foretell the people about the future and the will of the Most High concerning the Africa and the world as well. Those are the kind of people Simao Toco managed, if I can say, to to create, I don't know if I can use that word, Evate, these are the prophet of now that the Holy Spirit uses in order to comfort and to lead the people according to the will of the Most High, so that none of them, deviate from the will of the Most High. So those are the prophet, in which, although they were there before Simao Toco, but after Simao Toco, they are very strong now. And right now they are busy leading the people. So very sorry. I gave my best to explain in English. I don't know if I was able to help a little bit concerning your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much.
I will just add a little bit to that, to the explanation. The way I've come to understand Vate is, and somebody can post the scripture, I haven't looked it up, but you remember the scripture where Isaiah or Yeshua goes up to pray, and then Moses and Elijah appear? I think it's Moses and Elijah. And the disciples are there also, and they want to make, I don't know, a tent or something. But anyway, after Isaiah comes back to the disciples, they ask something, and then Isaiah tells them Elijah has already come. And I think in the book of Matthew, it's where it says, and the disciples understood Elijah to be John the Baptist. Right? If somebody finds the scripture, please find it for me. I want to post it here. Thank you, Mama Matuzola. It's Matthew 17, 1-9. So how is it that Elijah came in John the Baptist? That's the question. And the way that it is that physically you were seeing John the Baptist, but the spirit of Elijah at some point, different points in time during John the Baptist's life, the spirit of Elijah operated in the body of John the Baptist. And that process of a spirit like that of Elijah, someone who you could say was gone, dead, coming back and operating in a person that is living right now, that is the process of Avate, or you're being Avate, your body is being used as Avate. That's how I understand it. So that is how Elijah came in through John the Baptist. And this is something that has been available to all of us who believe, but it's been hidden by those who've been custodians of this knowledge, and they've kept it to themselves so that they have the last word. I hope that's sheds a bit more color to the understanding of the Vatican. Now you can have prophets, any other prophets, and I've listened to testimonies of several people who, in the middle of a congregation, they'll start speaking and they'll be asked, "Who are you?" It's like you asking me, "Who are you?" And you know my name and everything, but it's because you're hearing me speak differently. And then I identify myself, let's say, as Prophet Jeremiah. And then you give me permission to speak whatever the message is. If I was not a prophet of the Most High, I would identify myself as whatever, and you tell me, no, don't speak. But this prophet speaks through me and says, I am prophet so-and-so, this is the message, blah, 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 blah. And then I continue speaking as me. And that is the message that the Vate has used. So I've become a Vate in that moment to deliver a message from a certain prophet. I had never heard about this until the awakening. This is now different territory that we're going into, where we should have been all this time. Mama Royal Daughter, I see you have a comment. Go ahead.
Yes, when you were talking about the languages, and speaking in the language, I've had a pretty good grasp on the Bible, on the scriptures growing up. but I have never understood the Bible as much as I do now, learning the African languages, the Bantu languages. Just few words. I can't speak the language, just few words, you know, that I have learned and understand the meaning. It opens up the Bible in such a way like I never experienced, never understood, you know, and me having that understanding of the Bible, you know, the Bible was just, to me, growing up in Christianity, the Bible was a book of somebody else's story, you know? And so that's the way I understood it. But once, even just a few words, knowing just a few words in the original language, there's no way, there's no doubt in my mind that the Bible is an African book, because the African language is what opens up the Bible and opens up your understanding of the Bible. You know, and I've had these two strange experiences where I heard a phrase in a Bantu language. I've never heard it before, and I understood it. I don't know how I understood what the phrase meant, but you know, the Most High said he will restore a pure language. And I can't wait for him to restore the language, because just knowing a few words of the language, it opens up the Bible so much to me, and my understanding of the Bible so much. I can't wait for him to restore that pure language, because we will be like unstoppable if when we come back to the pure language. That is my, like, I know I understand it, because just knowing a few words has opened up the Bible so much to me. And get that.
Yes. I could not echo that a lot more, but again, those prophecies in the book, then they're around page 177. One of the prophecies where he was talking about the languages, Kimbangu said, "So I exhort you not to neglect nor forget your maternal languages." We call them mother tongue, okay? "You must teach them to your children and grandchildren, because there will be a time," hear this, "there will be a time when the languages of the whites will be forgotten." Okay, then he adds another one. "Nzambi the Father gave to each human group a language that serves as an alliance for communication." Each human group was given its own language that will serve as an alliance for communication. All right. I mean, I could, you know, go on and go on and go on, but I encourage you all, grab the book if you don't have a copy yet, dig it. I had read it once. I'm going to have to reread it again, because now my eyes were open to so many other things that I was seeing. Okay. Any other comments before we wrap up?
I just want to kind of add a small tidbit to what Mama Royal just said pertaining to the language. Now, I mean, you know that the when you break down the language and you try to, say, for instance, translate it to the Kikongo language, you try to translate it to English, it's based on consonants and not vowels. There are no vowels, right? So when you say two letters, two consonants can be a whole sentence, right? Can tell a whole story. So essentially, even when you're trying to, it's like basically, it's like the language is actually speaking to you. Instead of it being a language, it's speaking to you in light and not a language. You see what I'm saying? Like it's being it's the sentence, two consonants being a sentence is how do you know that? How are you going to know that? How are you going to perceive that? You see what I'm saying? So it's light. You see what I'm saying? The language itself is light. So I guess that also speaks to why you have to fall into a deep sleep to get a dream, or you see what I'm saying, like a vision, or so on. So like how it is inside the Bible, that's a light, that's a message through light. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I just wanted to share that really quick. Yes.
Thank you, Brother Makudi. Yeah, that's very good. I would echo, we talked about the book, The Most Intelligent Language in the World by Pastor Mello. That is where I first came across what Brother Makudi talked about, that the original languages we were speaking did not have vowels, they were just consonants. You see that in the explanation of Mosi, which is first, and Semi or Siemi or Nzambi. MS was the words, the letters. There was no O and I, in Mosi. There was no I or E in Siemi. It was just SM, and I have seen people even now deciphering the scriptures, like if you go on the channel, Jerusalem Script, that we featured a few weeks ago when we were talking about the location of Jerusalem, that content creator a lot of time deciphers words in the Bible using that deciphering of words by their consonants, not the vowels. And wow, it is something else. So all the H's that have been added and the J's, things like that, you take out that, you see clearly what was the intended. And it is the first sign I saw that just told me, this is our story. This is not their story. This is my story, There's no way you can have word after word after word that have the same pronunciation in my dialect and they have the same meaning as what the Hebrew purports to have. No, and yet in present day modern Hebrew, they don't use that word or words. But anyway, so much for that. Let me say hi to Brother Naibu, Sister Laura. How you all doing? You haven't said much today, just listening, absorbing. You guys okay?
Good. I'm just listening very deeply. This message is it's really so wonderful to hear all of this. And as honestly, it started making me think back again to the meditation about the three witnesses again. It just started making me think even deeper on this. And, we have to, it's kind of like what you said from the beginning, Elder Mutavi, how we have to be one within Nzambi first. And, it's like we've had 3 times, and this is kind of echoing what Mama Royal Daughter already explained, which she just did an amazing job at. But, we had the times before Christ, when we had the prophets and things. And, a lot of people also didn't receive the prophets, just like, some maybe now, we still don't receive them. There was times where we're still not receiving them. And then, we had the time when Christ came in the flesh, and, he manifested the word in the flesh and the spirit. And then now we have these times, the times after Christ, and it's like the power doesn't just stop, as Mama Royal Daughter was saying, in Christianity. It just, after Christ comes, it's like they kind of teach you, okay, now we're just in this waiting period where we're sitting here waiting for something to happen, but things are happening. It's just, that's not what they want us to really be looking at. So we have tons of distractions to keep us looking at the things that are happening. And it kind of takes me back to the scripture John chapter 1, verse 12, where it says, "But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God." And so it's like, you know, we are born of Tata and Nzambi. And again, with Tata and Nzambi, with Yesaya Congo, and, you know, the Holy Spirit, when we believe these things, you know, we've seen many things too. We're seeing so many things. We are given the power to do these things and more. And that's how it's like, you know, with Toko, with Simon Kimbangu, with these men, you know, men and women coming, doing what they're doing, you know, and these people, other people who see them and they believe it, you know, because they know that these people are people of, you know, the Most High. So I feel like I have a lot of words of what I want to say, but they're trying to be put together right now. So yeah, but I've really enjoyed all the comments, the questions, and the lesson overall. So Matando Masaka for that. Ingeta.
No, my elder, but I remember you mentioned something about the kingdom is not to come. So me, I just want to say, so much favor I didn't say earlier, but when I see us gathering right here, I say the kingdom is come. The kingdom has come because we are the kingdom. So when I'm seeing us breaking down, I'm like, yeah, this is the kingdom.
All right. That's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. And this is for the benefit of those that might be reading about Simao Toco or hearing about Simao Toco, and especially the events at Fatima for the first time. Read up on Revelation chapter 12. Compare the events of Revelation 12 and the people in Revelation 12 with what's happening at Fatima, or what happened at Fatima, Portugal. That might be helpful. All right, for your time. Really appreciate it. It's never enough time, but boy, I am full. I am full. I need to go sit down and digest it. I hope the same is with you.
Yes.
Ingeta.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.